Budget and Finance Committee meeting for the city of Franklin. It's April the 13th, 2026. We will call the meeting to order using a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Here.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Present.
And the chair votes present with Alderman Caesar not here yet, so we will check him in when he gets here. He's on his way. Good. Second item on the agenda is setting the agenda. Anyone wish to change the agenda or remove any item or do the presentations in order? If we do not, let's have a motion to approve the agenda as set.
So moved.
Proper second. Let's do a roll call vote on that also. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes on that also. Let's go then to approval of minutes. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at those. Any additions, any corrections? It is two meetings. It's March the 5th and March the 19th, Budget Finance Committee. Have we had a chance to look at the minutes? If we have, I'll entertain a motion to approve as written.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion to second. Let's do a roll call vote on them. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes also on that. We'll make one small comment. We won't rush through this, but we will be through by 4:45. There's another meeting coming in here at 5, so we will be through in an hour and 45 minutes. Let's go then to new business. Christine, you want to take this?
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to do the introduction. We have with us this afternoon representing Chartwell Hospitality. They are Chartwell Hospitality is the owner of the Marriott Cool Springs Hotel. They are also the operator of the Cool Springs Conference Center on behalf of the owners, which is Williamson County and the city of Franklin. We have Matt Leahy, the general manager of the hotel, along with Andy Duncan, who is the food and beverage manager, and has also worn many hats over the years with the facility and knows much about it. So with this, gentlemen, they're here to present the report for fiscal 27 for the Cool Springs Conference Center.
And I'll just add, we're coming up on our 30th year of this operation overall, and it's been an incredibly successful partnership between the city and county, working with our partners on the private operating and management side. And this team before you today, Matt and Andy, are as good as we've had in the time I've been here in terms of working together and making that venue so successful. We've had all but probably 3 years in that whole time frame where we did not turn positive proceeds back to the city and county. And that is unusual. These type of operations are typically lost leaders, if you will, for a community. It's needed, it's helpful. But you accept that you're going to have to put some money in it to make it work every year. And pretty much every year, we've managed to make it a positive net, give back to city and county. It essentially, on the city side, helped pay its own way in terms of debt service, which we now have no outstanding debt for the facility, and that's been true for a number of years now. But that's just a testament to a good, strong partnership on the public side, but also really strong, capable partners on the private side in terms of operating and promoting and helping it be a successful operation. So I want to thank these gentlemen publicly for the great work they do and how much we value the partnership. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Eric. That's kind of you. We enjoy working alongside the city and the county as well. You stole some of my thunder here. You talked a little bit about some of the program, but that's okay. We've got a deadline, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the history that you haven't already talked about, the operational summary of the conference center, upcoming projects that we are working on, and some past projects that we've just completed, possible challenges in the next fiscal year, and then some 2027 fiscal year budget notes that you can take back to the people. Yeah, that's right. So just looking at a little bit of the history, as Eric already pointed out, you can see that the graph that makes it very easy to see where we were profitable. Obviously, the 2021 is the big dip, and that was due to the pandemic when everything was shut down for several months, and basically the whole world stopped. But 2022 was a banner year. That was the best year that we've ever had. We gained $414,000 that year in net profit. The largest loss was in 2021 at $296,000. Next slide. Obviously, we're connected to the Marriott Cool Springs Hotel, which was built in 1999. The last major renovation for the conference center was in August. We took the center out of service for the entire month and did basically an entire renovation, carpet, wall vinyl, artwork. We put new air walls in. Over the time, we've had new chairs, so it's really a revamped product, which is great because we're competing with a lot of other people in the market that are doing similar things. It looks great. I would encourage anybody that's interested to come on over and see it, and we'll give you a tour. The hotel is 303 total guest rooms. We added 3 rooms recently when we moved our concierge level down to the lobby level, so we're a 303-room hotel now. Chartwell's put a lot of money into this. We're undergoing soft goods renovation, which includes all our carpeting in our guest room, wall vinyl, window treatments. We're redoing the entire lobby, so we're going to have a whole new product in the hotel side to go along with the new product in the conference center side. Because one doesn't survive without the other. We want to make sure that it looks good for both sides. Obviously, you mentioned, Christine, that we're managed by Chartwell Hospitality, and we do have some ownership in that hotel. So, our reputation is there. It's important that we do a good job for the city and the county, as well as for the hotel. I know that a lot of you have seen this slide before, but the expenses are split, and they're split on a revenue basis. The admin and general and engineering is split on total hotel and combined hotel and conference center revenues. So just a quick example, if you each did $100,000 that month, it's a 50-50 split. It usually comes out to about 70%, 30%, 70% to the hotel, 30% to the conference center. And then when the conference center has a really good month, it's a little bit different. It might be a 60-40. So when it is a 60-40, that means the conference center had a really good month. The sales department is split 50-50 between the hotel and the conference center. And then the catering and event management is 100% expense to the conference center. And then food and beverage is similar to the A&G and R&M, but it is done on food and beverage. So total revenue for food and beverage, and then you split that percentage. So most of the banquets is charged to the conference center because that's where all the revenue is. If you have any questions when we're going along, just let me know. Here's some of the things that we completed in the fiscal year in 2026. We did the full renovation of the conference center that included new carpet, paint, wall vinyl, lighting, air wall, cooling towers, the chiller. Did that fall in that?
It did.
Yeah, so the chiller as well. And the cooling tower and the chiller, they're big energy savers, so they're going to pay for themselves over time. But that was all done through the $2.4 million in ARPA funds, which was $1.2 million from the city and $1.2 million from the county. And then we just recently replaced our house sound system. And all those funds, other than $15,000 of it, was funded by Encore, who is our audiovisual company. And when we signed the 5-year contract with them, we had a incentive clause of $100,000. So that went completely to the city and county for improvements to the conference center. And that's because 99% of the revenue from Encore goes to the conference center. We did refurbish a large banquet walk-in cooler. We have signed and ordered the exterior door replacement, which is all the glass storefront doors that go around the conference center. They're in some really bad shape, just the way they're designed. They're built into the ground. The mechanism, they're built into the ground. We're going to take those above ground because the ground shifts and it doesn't make good for doors. That should start pretty soon. I think they're already ordering the parts. We're going to continue to replace original kitchen equipment. We just replaced a steamer. That was a $25,000 expense. And we're going to repair, reseal, and restripe the parking lot at a $47,000 expense. And then we did refinish the kitchen floor surface, which was a long overdue project for $40,000. And then for future projects, we have slotted to purchase banquet operating supplies and equipment. We're going to refurbish the second chiller, which is about $33,000. And these prices could fluctuate based on the market, but, right now it's about $33,000. We're going to refurbish a walk-in cooler. We're actually going to take a walk-in cooler and convert it into a freezer because we don't have enough freezer space. We're looking at purchasing a scissor lift, which is the only way we can get to the high ceiling in the ballroom. We're looking at internet upgrades, which is a brand standard for Marriott. What we have is good, but it's not quite up to the brand standard. Ice machine replacement. We're looking at buying staging for events. All that equipment is original equipment. Replace podiums, replace dance floors, and we have one more dryer replacement that we need to put in our laundry. We've replaced all the other ones over the last 5 years. Some of the things that are going to impact us financially over this fiscal year, staffing is still a concern. We're dependent on contract workers. The price goes up for everybody, whether they're contract work or they're, just people living in Franklin or in the surrounding area. We do wage surveys every year. As a matter of fact, we're just finishing up our current year's wage survey. Our increases happen in May for our hourly team members and June for our salaried team members. So we're looking at that before we present the new wages. Go to the next slide. Things that could impact our finances as well are the tariffs. We don't know where that's going to go. We're already starting to see fuel surcharges put back into place from our companies like US Foods who deliver our food, our supplies for guest rooms or supplies for banquets. So they're already increasing prices and doing the fuel surcharge. Natural disasters also play into it. If they're in an area that warehouses products or manufactures products, and then contracted services outside of our own teams like carpet cleaning, hood cleaning, repair services, all those things are obviously showing increases. And I think they're going to continue to do that year over year. And so what we do is we try and balance that with, making sure our menu prices are in line, making sure that we pass some of that along to our consumers. We do it, quarterly, I think, right, Andy? We look at all of our pricing and adjust accordingly, especially for the food side of it. The convention and meeting and events sales positions have stabilized. Right now, we haven't had any turnover for a little while, which is a great thing. The more stable we are in the sales department and catering department, I think it converts to more revenue because people get to know our team. There's not that turnover and people become comfortable with us. So that's good to see. We did just recently get a new director of sales, our Juanita Neely, who is our 26 years. She was our director of sales. Came right after the hotel opened and she finally retired. And we did hire a new director of sales. His name is Brandon Larson. He did work for Chartwell previously. He actually worked at the Hilton across the street, worked in Nashville, and he came back to Chartwell, and he's going to do great things for us. And then everybody knows, obviously, I already kind of touched on it, the current conflicts in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Those are where the fuel surcharges are starting to hit us pretty good. And then just a couple of notes on our year-over-years. Our annual year-over-year increase from 2026 is 8.7%. It's really a little bit higher than we would normally go, but you have to factor in August where we had no revenue. So that is the big difference factor there. For August, we didn't have actuals from the prior year, so we had to go back a couple of years to get, just to get what we would consider the normal increases. But since we didn't have anything in August of 2026, we didn't have that to go by. Year-over-year sales payroll is going to increase 4.7%. The big part of that is that the previous director of sales was out on medical for 6 weeks, and then there was probably a month and a half to 2 month period where we didn't have that position replaced yet. So that's the biggest part of the increase, 4.7% increase in sales. And then A&G and R&M allocations, like I said, we normally budget 70-30 split, which we are doing for fiscal year 2027. It's a little bit different in fiscal year 2026, we're 65-35%. And that had to do with the conference center being closed in August. And then some notable trends in our new business and pipeline. We're seeing an increase in large galas, events looking to book farther out into 2028. Before those were usually in the year for the year, and now we're starting to see farther out on those. But on the other side, we're starting to see smaller groups very, very short term. A lot of catering events booked 7 to 14 days out. We expect that trend to continue for the fiscal year 2027. And then we put this note in here, and since the budget was actually approved, we booked 2 very large groups that went definite in January and March. Historically, January and March have been soft due to coming out of the holidays and spring break and Easter. And we saw this shift in 2026, but did not anticipate it would reoccur in 2027. So we should have a good, I guess, what quarter is that?
It's a
Fiscal?
good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. And no, we're not going to go back and change the budget. And then, so if we look at our pace, the same time last year, our group room nights going into 2027 are up 1,800 compared to prior year. Holiday events, we're really focusing on rebooking holiday events. We have had some really big ones lately, and they're really, like $150,000, $200,000 functions that are one night or 2 nights, and so those really help us out. And those are recurring, they're gonna rebook, and we hope to see them again. Need dates, we continue to have strong mid-term local catering within 30 to 90 days that is strategically placed to fill in holes that are left open in between large groups or in need weekends. And how that works is we don't have a free sale of the conference center for catering events because you try and get multi-night group rooms and catering banquets. So if you just sell it to one-offs and it takes up all the space, it limits you what you can do throughout the course of the week. So it's maximizing our revenue. And so we're seeing some really good movement, and we're looking forward to 2027 fiscal year. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
I talk fast, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My question was around the ice storm earlier this year. We lost August, and I don't know if the ice storm that we had earlier this year impacted room nights and/or events, and if that'll start to show up as we review this this time next year.
Yeah, we did have a large group, which was Road Builders, cancel. They were, obviously, they were working in the roads. So they canceled, but they did rebook in the year for the year. So they actually just were here, a few weeks ago, right? So they did rebook, and so they didn't lose any of their cancellation. We allowed them to move.
So like a net.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we actually only collected cancellation from one group. Everything else shifted to future months. Most of that was in February and March.
Yep.
Margaret, I would just make note, Mr. Chair, if we may, that we actually, the city's result, I mean, of course, this is just half of the total, but we had a positive result of $18,000 in January, and that was compared, because that could have been potentially more positive if the ice storm hadn't have happened, but we did have a positive month of January, and actually January the year before was negative. So
Yep.
they made the most out of bad weather because we were $18,000 to the positive, and then Margaret's getting ready to talk about February was also positive. So
Yeah.
the first 2 months of the calendar year during the winter were strong months.
Yeah, it was,
Financially, anyway. I know it's hard on them to
And March is
operate,
too.
but
So when the final March results come out, we'll see.
yeah, and hopefully we start to see some momentum with the renovation and our new director of sales, so there's fresh ideas and fresh eyes, and, so it's going to be good.
Any additional questions of Matt? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good report.
We appreciate it.
We look forward to the conference center report each year. Yes,
Keep that money coming in.
that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item 4, appropriations to outside agencies. Michael, do you want to You want to kick this off?
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Michael Walters Young, your Chief Budget and Performance Officer. With me this afternoon is Norma Lockney, one of our Budget and Performance Analysts, who is our staff liaison and lead when it comes to managing the appropriations to outside agencies process. There are several individuals who are in the audience today who are interested in this presentation and maybe to have a few moments with you after we are done. So I will turn this over to Norma to go through the few slides we have. You will note at your place, we do have, and we'll make reference to, a scorecard. This is the efforts that were asked for by this committee last fall as a result of the appropriations review process last year. And so in a nutshell, on one page, you have the agency, the type of nonprofit they are, the current appropriation, what they've requested, and then a percentage of revenues, if it's a first-time request or not, the years that they have that they've received funds, and then an attempt to talk about strategic plan designation and/or core service determination. We're happy to go through any of those as well after we give the summary presentation. Norma.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone who showed up today to talk about or just listen to the appropriations process. So today we're going to talk about the funding types, our base budget request, our historic funding levels, and our program enhancement request. So as you are well aware, we do give money to several different types of agencies. One is a 501c3, one is a 501c4 or C6, and government agencies. And those are all IRS tax-exempt organizations. So for 2026, our budget was $722,095, and for 27, the budget is now $732,033. That's an increase of $9,938, or 2.6%. And those are because of animal control, which is adding another $10,467, and Williamson County Health Department is a negative $529. So that's what encompasses the $9,938 increase. So you can see this is our historic funding level since 2018. We are going up just the 2.6% from 2026. So in addition to all of those base funding levels, we organize a program enhancement request for all of the increases that are requested. And those are all divided between three categories. So we have 20 increases that are requested this year, totaling $114,340. And those are between government agencies, additional requests for civic organizations, and new agency requests for funding. So the government agency who has requested an increase this year is the library. They would like to increase by $29,650 over what we gave them last year, and that's for inflationary and additional materials. The civic organizations are all listed here. You can see they have various increases. Most of them are just inflationary, but as you can see, some of them have increased needs, and some of them have special projects or want to expand their service offerings. And so that's why they're asking for a larger amount than what they did last year. And then our new request. So last year we had Doorstep Project, we had ShareBuilt, and we had Studio 10 Theater. They are back again this year requesting funding. So they were new last year, but they were not funded, and these are their requests for this year. And then we also have Memories of Honor as a brand new request, and that is a Boots of Honor memorial that represents service members killed since 9/11. And those new requests total $38,400. So our total program enhancement request, in addition to that $732,000, would be $114,000, $29,000 from the government agency, $46,000 from outside civic organizations, and $38,000 from the new agency request.
Let me just comment quickly on that group of outside agency or new agency funding. Memories of Honor is a little bit unique in that we are hosting an event for them in the parks, so we're doing certain things to help facilitate that event. It's a little bit unusual to have a funding request from somebody we work with on their special event. And that just kind of a linkage there. So that's sort of unique. I just highlight that for you, that there's a different kind of, they're fairly new in doing this event. I think this is
I think this year,
This is the
in
first-
May this year will be the first
the first
year.
event, and I believe they're planning another one
They do,
next year.
yes.
But they provided this originally, I think, targeted towards this year.
Correct.
Said, well, that's not really, how this process works, and so they adjusted it, modified it to be for the next year.
Correct.
But it is a relatively new event, but one we're working with and facilitating through parks in terms of accommodating them, I believe, at Bicentennial.
It's like a 5-day traveling exhibit type thing.
Yeah. So it's just unique in that way. I just wanted to highlight that for you.
So is the 350,000 their annual budget?
Michael has that sheet there?
It's on this? Okay.
360.
350, 516,
Right.
yes. So on this sheet, the scorecard, there were several questions that when we talked about this and reviewed this in this committee last September or October, one of the fall meetings, we solicited input on what additional questions or structure this committee would like when these applications are reviewed and vetted by staff. On Civic Clerk, you have their full packets. So there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of attachments on this agenda item. Also included are the guidelines that we gave agencies, so you can review those. One of the things that was asked for was that we see what their total appropriation or revenues are, so we can do an evaluation of the percentage of revenues. The idea here would be that each agency limits to a maximum of around 25%, unless there's a mitigating or special circumstance, direct aid from the city to their overall budget. And then also, certainly, if they are a first-time request, make that sort of designation.
Go ahead.
My question was a follow-up on Eric's comment, and maybe with regard specifically to the Memories of Honor. Does that 10,000 represent actual funds, or is that representing in-kind for park use and funds?
It's a funding request. There are a number of things we do that could be considered in-kind support that we do with folks when we work a special event. That is not in this number. This is a straight financial support request.
Then let's go ahead and do the speaker cards. I've got Richard Brasher, I guess, wanting to speak to item 4. That would be, if you want to come up.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So I'm with ShareBuilt, and I just kind of wanted to explain who we are, what we do. So we're a nonprofit that works with other nonprofits and help their construction needs become reality. So basically, if you're a nonprofit, you need a new building, renovations, you might not know where to begin. So we can help with that. We don't replace the contractor or the architect, but we can help make those introductions and then serve alongside that nonprofit from the beginning to the end of the construction project. Thank you.
Did you not, is this request was also made last year too, Michael?
Yes, sir, they did request last year.
Okay. And we have Jessica Jeffers or Amanda James, or both, on the library.
Chair, I have a handout. If you find it appropriate, I can give to the budget.
Absolutely.
Okay. I only have 4 for just the budget. You guys can pass and share it around. Yeah, thank you. I'm coming to you today for this increase and ask, and I believe we explored something similar last year. This is really with the hopes of exploring an interlocal agreement, much like we have with the animal centers, of getting your library services set up in the same manner. That would provide us with more secure funding year to year. In the packet, you'll see that over 60% of our library cardholders are City of Franklin residents. And last year, we had 246,000 and some change visits just to the main library in Franklin. We had over 98,000 people visit our playroom, which is only in the main library in Franklin. We provide meeting room services, 4 private study rooms at the City of Franklin location. So all of these are unique benefits to the city of Franklin residents. Other county residents can use them as well, but within the city limits, these are very unique to this location at this time. We're asking for $104,400 this year, and that is 60% of our county allowance, but for materials. One of the things with materials, if you're not aware that, and I put in the handout, is the costs that libraries pay, often 3 to 4 times more than what the consumer pays. So while you may be paying $20 for a digital audiobook, we're paying $80 to $100 for that book. And they're all set up with different licenses. Right now, there's currently, I just checked one title today, and there's a 6-month wait on that title. So this is just behoove, us to better serve the residents in the city of Franklin. So that's why I'm here today asking for you to consider this increase. Any questions?
Questions?
How many library card holders in the city of Franklin, did you say? I missed that number.
Yes, it's 21,445 library cards.
Franklin residents? Okay.
Yes, Franklin residents. And that's pulled from the 3 major zip codes.
So, let me ask you, the 3 million, that's all the libraries?
That is our library, yes, and then
That's all of the libraries?
all 6, yes, 6 locations.
So what is just the Franklin's operation then?
We don't have that really broken out by, we could definitely pull, I believe when we submitted our allocation request, Amanda Jones did a good job of kind of figuring out what the cost of the, electricity would be and the services, and it was around $2 million. So that would be just for the main library in Franklin, but we don't have it separated out in our budget necessarily.
Chairman Barnhill, if you look in the package for the library, their funding package, they do have
They got it broken out?
they do have it broken out for the city of Franklin.
So it's in here?
Yes, no, in the email.
It's in the packet,
Okay.
yes, the library packet that's on Civic Clerk, correct.
Any questions? Alderman Caesar, go right ahead.
Appreciate it. I think, first off, thank you, Jessica, for coming in and sharing some of this information. I think it's not only surprising to me, but when the first time I heard it, but surprising to some of those sitting around the table, you would assume digital means less expensive and
Right.
easier to get, right?
Right.
And the opposite is often the case.
Yes.
Especially in library books. And as somebody who has a few library books, I'm waiting some of those 120-day periods
Yes.
on Libby, which is a tool that I use more than I physically go to the library
Correct.
because of life. And it's not only that I use it, my daughter, who's 12, uses it. And my kids who are in college, I don't know if it's legal for them to be away in college and use it, but that's also how
I
they're
won't say anything.
It's also, I shouldn't have admitted that. Yes, yeah, we can. And we strike that last piece. But in all seriousness, we're serving people in ways that I think historically we've thought of library as a physical place you go and do, and now it's that and.
Right.
How can we help our community grow more knowledgeable, enjoy relaxing with a book, whether it's a digital copy or a physical copy? And while I recognize this is a county service,
Yes.
if the city were to internalize this, the cost would be substantially more than the increase that you're asking today. And appreciate you sharing some of the cost factors behind the scenes that are driving this request. This isn't because, of a superfluous, it's probably not the right way to pronounce that word, but an insignificant need. This is the real cost of you continuing to deliver the same, if not a little bit better service. I'd love to see a 10-day wait on a book as opposed to a 100-day wait on a book.
Yeah.
The one little sidebar is that when I wait 100 days for a book, it may mean that I read some of those less popular books in the interim.
Yes.
But I think it would be great to be able to offer these types of resources for our community, and I think it's a good use of our taxpayer dollars. I'm surprised a little bit that only 21,000 people have library cards, but that's more than people that often vote in our city. So I think both of which reflect the type of community that we want to see grow. We want to see
Correct.
more readers, we want to see more voters. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have attendance. Do you check attendance? I walked through the little screen thing there, whatever it is. Does that record attendance or what does?
You mean attendance in programs or just coming into the door?
Coming in the
Yes,
door?
we have a digital traffic counter.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael? Anything else on appropriations? I do have the speaker cards. A couple of you I noticed came in a little bit late. Would you like to, we'll give you that opportunity. Come up.
My hat today is representing Doorstep Project. Request for funds to help support our transitional housing program. What Doorstep was developed in 2017 because the domestic violence shelter could not move people on to continue to live in our community due to affordability and taking time to settle finances or to achieve a raise in their job or education. So Doorstep was founded to give clients exiting Bridges that had every right to be able to stay and live in our community and keep their established schools for their children and churches and affiliations here locally. So with the affordable housing minimal, Doorstep has 4 units, 2 single-family homes and a duplex that clients can go to for 6 months to a year. We felt like that they needed to pay rent, so it was in their budget. They have someone working with them bi-monthly to work on budget and getting prepared to move back into the community and independent living, so that they don't falter and have to go back to a dangerous situation. And so they pay 30%. And then it's put in an escrow account. And if they continue to meet with their advocate and take care of the property, they get 75% back to move and start their life over. And so this is not a lifetime living opportunity. It's just a 6 month to a year to be able to get their life settled after the trauma of their life blowing up, to be able to get on their feet and be able to stay here where they're established.
So does that come under your jurisdiction then? Do they?
Bridges does referral to Doorstep. Doorstep is a standalone nonprofit.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Make sure I understand. Does Bridges have any direct operational relationship
They refer
with Doorstep?
clients.
Okay, it's a referral.
And I sit on the board of
Okay.
Doorstep to make that collaborative agreement work.
So they're a partner for you, but they're
Right.
not an extension of Bridges directly? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else who did not fill out a card, you've got this opportunity if you want to speak before the committee. If not, we're going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is debt service. Oh, debt service, okay.
That's back over this way.
That's back over this way.
Well,
Well, it's both ways if we're looking at the agenda.
we just teeter back and forth, and thank you for this opportunity to, this committee has worked tirelessly on the city's debt the last couple of years. So this is going to be a little bit of going back over what we have looked at, as we have had new bond issues, general obligation bond issues in fiscal years 2025 and 2026. So, but this is our, sort of our standard outline for this presentation as part of the debt, as part of the budget process. We do manage debt for two different credits, two different securities for the city. We have the general obligation bonds. That is what staff refers to as our full faith and credit. It's repaid from property taxes that are paid by our property owners here. It is the strongest pledge that a city or county or state government may issue. As we've talked about with the full board, this debt service, there is really, the bondholders have every recourse to be able to get their principal and interest repaid, both through the court systems as well as here in Tennessee, our state. While they won't pay the debt service for local governments, they do enforce that will be paid through the budget review. So that is something that we have used for replacing fire apparatus, for road projects, park projects, other public building projects. We do also have a water and wastewater utility which has debt, and we do manage the debt by the finance and administrative function. And it does have a standalone credit rating, and it is paid separately from revenues of the water and sewer utility. But there are some tangential links between the two. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to mention just a little bit about that in a moment, that certainly the city having a water and sewer utility, it is something that it's seen as a positive, because that is really helping to manage something that's very important for the well-being of our residents and the well-being of our businesses. And so it is something that we talk about with our rating agencies, is the health of our water and sewer utility, even though certainly the debt is paid separately, but it's considered an advantage to a local government to be able to control your water and sewer utility. We do, as of January 30th, 2026, this slide looks a little bit different than it was last year when we were together. We did issue $104 million worth of general obligation bonds. We closed in March. When we looked at this last year, we had $132 million of general obligation debt. We added the $104 million, but we also repaid $13 million of principal this year. So we do have a very aggressive principal repayment. That's something that's been a policy of the city of Franklin for many years, is to repay principal in a timely manner. And we began paying that principal pretty much the first full year of the amortization. So we do have $222 million outstanding of general obligation debt. We also, on the water and sewer side, we do have loans and debt of $122 million. We have, I will describe the last 2 years going through the 2025 and 2026 general obligation bond processes. Those have been a full-blown review by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's of our credit, our general obligation credit. They really look under all the documents. They look at our financials extremely closely. They do review financials every year, our audits, but they do have a very close review. They really ask staff, and Mayor Moore's involved in that process, and our city administrators heavily involved in this process. So we have looked very closely at the criteria for our bond ratings for the general obligation credit in these last 2 years. So that's been it's very thorough, but it's a little bit, I give the same commentary as we talk about our audit process, that while it may be painful, it's also good for us to go through those processes. We learn a lot about ourselves in those ways. And so we have done that twice in a 12-month period. So we've learned a whole lot about ourselves in that period. Very good things. But we also, and I'll hit just for a moment, that we did talk about water and wastewater as we talked about the general obligation credit. So my colleague, Mark Hilty, our assistant city administrator, was a big part of that process and was a big help, because that's something that the rating agencies are very interested in, is the health of your water and sewer utility when they're looking at your community as a whole. So we appreciate Mark's role in that, because that is something that we also had looked at in these last couple of years. One of our major covenants for our water and sewer utility is our debt coverage ratio. And this is something that we added into this presentation a few years back because we wanted to highlight the importance of that debt coverage ratio, which is something that we, as we've issued more debt, we certainly, the first large capital project that we issued debt for was for the $153 million wastewater treatment plant expansion for the existing plant. And that's where you can see that our debt coverage went from over 2 times down to closer to just under 1 times there, or 1.5 in 2022. And that was expected, but we really didn't have much debt on this utility until we issued $130 million toward that $153 million project. So while it was expected, you do see our debt service coverage fell, and we're at 155 at the last year. Our minimum is 125. And so as you certainly hear a lot about debt service coverage when the rate studies come to the full board. But this is something that we and Margaret Wilson and all of us on the finance side are looking very closely throughout the year to project where we're going to be. And we certainly work very closely with Michael during the budget process to present a budget that will satisfy these requirements. This is a schedule of the future of our general obligation debt service that we will repay through final maturity of 2051. The bars, I call it the stair step down, looks similar as it has before we issued the last 2 bond issue. We just have raised the bars up, but we still have these stair steps coming down. And while we did add $7 million of debt service into fiscal 27, our total debt service will be close to $26 million. We are at a high point, if you look at where we're at here in this early year for fiscal 27, but we do have 2 bond issues that we pay off in fiscal 27. We have a 2012 refunding issue that we have one last maturity in 27, and then we have a 2019 D, which was it was part of the refinancing that we did for the police building. We back in 2019 had an opportunity to refinance the debt that was on our police building. We actually shortened the amortization. We broke it into 2 bond issues, and we did one very short that just has this last year in 27. And even our long one now just goes out to 2032. We shortened the long end 3 years as well. So we do get the first bond issue for the police building paid off in 27. I know Alderman Peterson was probably very excited. She remembers that. She worked very closely, as well as Alderman Barnhill and the mayor, on the refinancing for the police building. So we still have that very advantageous structure, but we did just raise up the debt service as we've added on the most recent bond issue. This final slide shows the preliminary budget for how we will repay the debt service in fiscal 27. Almost $21 million of the $25.9 million comes from property taxes that are levied in that current year. My colleague Michael does a really good job of talking about the road impact fund. This is debt that was issued, I think it was over 18 years ago and back, that we're just running its course. We'll be allocating just under $4 million, and once that runs its course, we don't have any more debt service allocated to road impact funds. And we do have very small allocations with hotel, motel, and sanitation funds. So that's a run-through of debt service for fiscal 27, if there's any questions or discussion.
Any questions?
I want to just thank Christine and the team on the finance side in particular, but it is a across-the-city effort to make sure we maintain, secure the AAA rating, but also that we manage this effectively. The initiatives that Christine talked about in terms of some of the refinancing, restructuring that we did have all resulted in significant savings and a more consistent, more conservative approach to how we manage debt as part of our strategy to deliver projects to the community. So none of that's an accident. A lot of effort goes into folks right here on this table and over there and in the room and elsewhere to make it possible, and just want to thank them for that excellent work.
I have a question on slide number 5, which is the measure where we're measured favorable. What are the options that we could be measured or that we could receive there? Is favorable the highest remark, or are there others? Is there a very favorable?
No, this is, favorable is where you want to be.
Okay.
Yes. The rating agencies don't have, in fact, they have negative outlooks. They have they just have positive outlooks. They don't have a lot of different categories of good or bad, other than the ratings themselves.
Okay.
So this is based in feedback we get from the rating agencies and the information our financial advisor looks at and said, here's what they look at. Our benchmark is how other AAA-rated credits are doing. And the realm of AAA credits that are also high-growth communities or communities that are experiencing growth at all is an even smaller universe. So it is very good that we're taking on what we need to take on to meet the needs of a growing community while we still consistently hit these favorable measures. So it's all this idea of we use debt, but we use it strategically, we use it selectively, and we try to make sure we stay within those parameters that these rating agencies look at when they think about what a AAA looks and feels like.
You've had this in your debt management policy for quite some time.
Yes.
The rating agencies, I won't say constantly, but pretty regularly reevaluate exactly their individual rubrics, and they have different guidelines. They've deprioritized affordability ratios over the last decade. It's not that they don't use them, but the share of how you get and evaluate. Christine can elaborate.
I agree with Michael's comment. They still do look at ratios, but they've also have some of the other not as black and white type criteria. For example, they look at management a lot more than they used to. They look at decisions that are made, because there are certainly some communities that can afford to repay debt service, but they decide not to, or their budget processes are so difficult, they struggle to just get the authorities to repay. So, or they live in states that they have caps on how much they can levy to repay debt, whether it be for water or raise rates. So they are looking at the environment as much in recent years as they were just, can you afford to repay? But these are still important. But certainly, they are looking at the full package of what they believe that an investor needs to understand before they decide to purchase debt.
Go ahead.
I'm new on the Budget and Finance Committee, so please indulge me with this question. This is a beautiful stair step down on slide number 7, but we're also talking about spending nearly $400 million to build a water treatment facility. Will that be reflected at some point here in the future?
Not in this slide. This right here is the general obligation debt. So that debt is completely separate. We don't have, we talk about water and sewer with our coverage slide in here. But our water and sewer debt that we have total outstanding right now of $122 million, that goes out to 2053. It has a different curve, because we did issue most of that debt for that one plant just a couple of years ago. So, and certainly I'd be glad to get you provide a chart that shows that.
Well, that chart is available in your packet of March 19th in the water and sewer budget.
Yes.
Because that's where it's appropriated, and we segregate revenue bonds from the
You
debt service.
threw me with water and sewer revenue and principal bonds, but I appreciate that. So-
I can't lose a chance to talk about all debt when we talk about this presentation. So
Gotta
that's why
slide it in
we threw in water and sewer, just to kind of get the conversation again about both the types of debt that we have outstanding.
But we were very intentional to separate those out. It didn't used to be that way. And so that allows us to continue to do what we need to do for broader, more general needs through GO debt, but then the water and sewer truly stands on its own as a business unit, not only in operations, but in terms of what we incur to make the kind of investments we need to for the system. So this is really a very sound move for us, has proven really effective in managing all those needs and commitments that we have.
And also, not all citizens have City of Franklin water. and
That's,
sewer.
they are different, there's a lot of crossover, but it is a different subset of groups of customers and citizens. Good point.
Any other questions or comments? Then let's go to item number 6, development funds. Look like it has your name attached to it, Michael.
It's because it does. The next 3 items,
Have your name attached.
have my
to it.
have my
Yes,
name
they do.
attached to them, so we'll go through them, at least 7 and 8 as quickly and expediently as we can, and then Eric and I will, work with you to do item 9. So this is a quick summary and catch-all of 4 separate funds. These are our development funds: the city, county, facilities tax funds, the road impact fund, and the parkland dedication fund. The city facilities tax fund is a special revenue fund which accounts for the proceeds authorized by a private act of the General Assembly in 1987 for the city of Franklin to levy and collect a privilege tax on new development. To provide that, new development shall contribute its fair share of providing new public facilities made necessary by growth. There are 2 main rules that govern the use of this fund. Number 1, you can use it for police, fire, sanitation, and parks and recreation expenditures only. And as, if not more importantly, these expenditures can only be related to growth, not replacement. This year's budget request assumes $2.171 million in revenues. This is a broken record, but all of these funds are highly dependent upon what developments are approved and when those permits are pulled, because that is when they pay their fees. So we know it's been approved, we know it's in pipelines, but it's always a question of when will they walk in the door and submit their fees. For FY27, the budget request on the expense side is about $5.7 million, $48,000 for a new fire equipment washer. This was an FY26 request in PER that was funded, but we will not take ownership of it until fiscal 27 after July 1. And then $5.68 million in parks for direct support of Robinson Lake and the Pearl, 2 of your approved CIP projects. The County Facilities Tax Fund is a special revenue fund used to account for the city's share of the county's adequate school facilities tax. 30% of the proceeds of the tax are distributed to incorporated areas within the county. Another 30% is divided pro rata among the incorporated cities based upon population. We began collecting a share of this tax in fiscal 22, and in fiscal 27, we created a separate fund to track the proceeds. We are forecasting $871,000 in revenue and $1 million, offsetting that in expenses for the design and right-of-way efforts for the newly approved redesign of Mallory Liberty North Royal Oaks intersection from your last meeting. Road Impact Fund. The purpose of the Road Impact Fund is, again, a special revenue fund created for accounting expenditures in accord with City Ordinance 88-13 and the proceeds of road impact fees from new development. We have updated this structure in a variety of times. We did it in 2011, we did it last year. These funds can be used to pay for new arterials, ends, collectors, roadways directly through payment of debt service on bonds or cash for projects. We're estimating $6.25 million in revenues coming in, again, highly dependent upon when those permits are pulled, and $13.9, almost $14 million in expenditures. $5 million for offset agreements. As we talked about in a prior meeting, when we enter into agreements with developers, we sign offset agreements. If they pay 100% for the infrastructure, great. They are eligible for 100% refund of what they build. If they don't, then we have the money to be able to invest in our own projects. Higher debt service payments this year, as Christine just reviewed, $3.9 million is the debt service. This is the peak year for debt service coming out of the Road Impact Fund. It will be fully paid after fiscal year 32. There is a significant step down of about $900,000 for next year's debt service appropriation. It goes down another million in 2030, and then another $800,000 in 2031 before 2032 being that final year. And then finally, $5 million for approved CIP projects, continued work on McEwen Phase 4 and Phase 5. Finally, the Parkland Dedication Fund was created in 2015. Funds can be used for the acquisition or development of public parks, greenways, blueways, open space sites, and related facilities. $2.1 million in revenues is what we're estimating. Again, highly dependent upon when permits are pulled, and $1.9 million for your approved projects to, a CIP project to improve Liberty Park. Happy to stand for any questions that the committee may have regarding the anticipated development fund budgets.
Any questions or comments? I'm gonna make one comment, and it'll only take a second or two. The comment, I still remember sitting in the room, and the comment when we passed the facilities tax, and that tells you how long I've been listening and been sitting around. You're gonna kill growth. And that was 1987. You're going to, the facilities taxes, you're going to kill growth. The city will dry up. It will blow away. Slow down. Any questions of Michael on that? Then let's go to item 7, which is budget presentation, hotel motel fund.
The Hotel Motel Fund for the City of Franklin is a special revenue account which is used to account for the locally administered occupancy tax for hotel motel and vacation rental by owner rooms, in addition, of course, to any sales tax. The City of Franklin's hotel motel tax is 5%, effective April 1st of 2026. This fund is used to pay for the debt service in the past of the Cool Springs Conference Center and the Harlansdale and Battlefield Parks. Funds are also used and primarily used for capital projects related to and support of local tourism efforts. The single largest expenditure on a recurring basis is 1% of the 5% tax, which is given to support the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think Marina's still here. Overall performance, you can see on the screen of the last 10 years. This mirrors in many ways the conference center. Again, tourism significantly declined in the final quarter of 2020 and then in 2021, but rebounded more than heartily in 22 and ongoing. Visit Franklin, the CVB, provides monthly performance of our hotels. Eric provides these for you from Marine to Eric in your weekly updates from time to time. These include measuring occupancy rates, annual daily rates, the revenue available per room, supply and demand of the rooms, and the total revenue generated. The summary on your screen and in your budget is the latest one that we have, which is from the month of January. And it shows that, yes, occupancy was bolstered actually by the winter storm as people were looking for, if nothing else, electricity. I know as a citizen of Davidson County that Williamson County fared much better and had more electricity. And it trended above 2% over 2025. And Visit Franklin was also anticipating strong Februarys and March. So all of these metrics are here. Visit Franklin does a wonderful job monitoring and seeing trends and looking at long-term trends and even trying to very much stay ahead of the curve and all the curves. Budget summary for this fund is revenues of $7.56 million anticipated and expenditures of $6.4. That is $4 million dedicated to Liberty Park improvements, roughly $1.5 million, I believe, for support of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and $800,000 or so for debt service payments. This fund, like the Road Impact Fund, has debt service that lasts until 2032, at which time all debt service currently being charged against the fund will be fully serviced. Mr. Chairman, happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions of Michael? Mayor?
What we pay, the Visitors Bureau lags behind. It's a year behind. It's based on what the prior year's estimates were. And I noticed that it's almost $100,000 less. I'm just curious of how that impacts the Visit Franklin. And, sitting on that board, I see a lot of the investment that they're making to attract people. So I'm just kind of curious what effect that might have.
So it is based upon, we have an agreement, a written agreement with the Convention of Visitors Bureau that we take a look at the last calendar year's collections. So in this case, it will be the amount of money, 1% of the tax that was received from January 1st through December 31st, 2025. Now, why do we do this? We do this because it is a known, definable, recorded number. Our billing and licensing department provides monthly updates of those collections to the CVB so that we can both agree as to what that number will be. And so if there are slight ebbs in tourism, or if it's not quite as strong, that number may drop slightly. Most of the time, though, it does go significantly or considerably up year over year because, referencing that curve, that is what we have seen. So there is a slight dip, but the impact will not be that great and could even hold harmless to the CVB depending upon how that 12-month calendar year activity was compared to the 12-month fiscal year activity.
Only you could explain it that way, Michael.
Any other questions of Michael? Then let's go to miscellaneous general budgets.
Item 8 is miscellaneous general fund departments. We have 3 in this area of the budget. 2 are going to be discussed here. General expenses and interfund transfers. The general expense budget department of the city of Franklin includes everything else that we haven't put in a general fund department. So that would include our annual allotment for wage increases and merit pay. It's the pass-through account for our medical and dental expenses, which are budgeted in each department but run through this account and then settled up. Our dues for TML, the Tennessee Municipal League, our annual audit dues that are attributed to general fund reviews. There's also a portion which is budgeted in the water and sewer budget. Fuel hedging, if we have any, and the Franklin Community Survey, as well as $100,000, which was set aside for support of housing initiatives in 2019, still remains in this line item in 2027. Thank you, Pearl. The FY26 budget and personnel currently is $1.17 million. For FY27, it's $4.5 million. Now, there's lies, and damn statistics. 289.1% seems like a really big increase, but keep in mind, this is where we put our wage increases. Once we get approval of the budget and we do wage workbooks, we see who, based upon their merit scores and the agreed to cost of living adjustment, is going to receive what increase. They receive that effective the start of the new fiscal year, and then in your first budget amendment, we move the money out of this fund or department into all of the other departments within the city. So therefore, this is the holding place for the increase. That actual amount in 26 started near that amount, but now is reflected in each and every single departmental budget. So this is a budgeting tool only.
So for the city, it was $3,388,000 in wage and benefit increase.
Between 2.5 and 3. Keep in mind, you do have additional funds in here for any additional market compensation studies or compression analyses, which
Okay.
may need to be taken care of throughout the year. There's a small amount in here for, again, this is the medical pass-through area. This also does not include the wage increases for stormwater, sanitation, and water employees. Those are budgeted for separately in those funds. And as you've reviewed those funds prior, you will see that they also have general expense departments now. All of the operational funds have general expense departments, so we can mirror our budgeting and accounting in any area that we have an employee. On operations, it's about $109,000, $110,000 increase, or 4.8%. That is because of our anticipated property and liability insurance costs. We moved all property and liability insurance to the general expense category last year out of departments in order to more easily manage those line items. In the past, they fluctuated greatly year to year based upon how we bid the insurance, and so the budgetary data you were getting was not really relevant, because if you had one bad year and a couple of wrecked police cruisers, police could be charged significantly more the next year, and then others would go down. So keeping it in one place just makes more sense for everyone to keep track of. Interfund transfers are an accounting mechanism simply to show funds that we take from the general fund and transfer to other funds. This year, the request is for just under $17 million in transfers, or an increase of 21.1%. Highlights include $250,000 to the Street Aid Fund for paving of assets. That would be parking lots. So for example, if we needed to repave the parking lot outside here in Eastern Flank, we partner it with everything else in Street Aid because it's all one place and one paving contract. The request from the Transit Fund for support of operations. We averaged $2.5 million to the Fleet Replacement Fund for annual replacement of fleet vehicles and police cruisers. Those are commercial fleet vehicles of departments within the general fund. Water, sanitation, stormwater are, again, accounted for in their respective funds. $5.8 million transferred directly to the Capital Projects Fund to support CIP-related projects. That would be $2.1 million in general support for approved CIP projects, and $3,675,000, or approximately 3.4 cents of your property tax, in support of Mac Hatcher Southeast Partnership expansion with TDOT. And finally, just under $7 million is being appropriated to the Debt Service Fund to assist in servicing the 2026 GO bonds for City Hall based upon our capital financing model. If you look at the debt service model within the financing model, we had been planning how to issue those bonds for quite some time and saving that accumulated cash for the moment when we issued the spike. And so therefore, general fund operations will be maintained with their level of property tax support, and the debt service will be subsidized by this until that curve goes back down. Mr. Chairman.
Questions about, yes, Matt?
Is that the entirety of the transit budget, or what percentage of the transit budget is that?
Probably between 25 and 30% of the fund. The request this year, I believe, is $5.1 million. So we look at this annually depending upon needs of the transit fund. They've requested a slightly higher amount. We're still evaluating that. Again, most of their money comes directly from state and federal grants, mainly federal grants for operations, over 50%. A very small amount from fares. The second largest amount is our subsidy. And just because we budget that amount does not mean that is what is moved to the transit fund for operations. We do a monthly, they submit monthly requests for funding because they, of course, are, just like with any grant, they spend their money and then submit it back to the feds for reimbursement. We provide funds, but there are very few years in my memory where the amount the city provides actually matches that total appropriation.
Any other questions? Okay, we're ready then for item 9, budget enhancements and priorities.
I will kick
Who
that.
wants to go first?
I will kick that off,
You wanna go
Mr. Chair
first. All
and
right.
committee. This is a process we've done now. I think this is the fourth budget I believe we've done this in, and it's an opportunity for the board to give us feedback. You've had a series of meetings as a committee, but the same materials have been shared with the rest of the board, and you've seen them in snippets. But one of the pieces of feedback we got when we did a debrief with you all and with our team was that you really wanted to have an opportunity to step back and look at the program enhancements, the requests, more holistically, not just within the snippet that you're hearing from a department, but look at them together and have an opportunity to process that and give us feedback on what you found to be most impactful, most important to you. So we sent out a sheet asking for your feedback, and Michael will walk through how we have tallied that information, but it has been very helpful in the last several budget cycles to see that feedback and balance it with what we're seeing on the administrative staff side, and to have that part of the conversation as we bring a proposed budget to you in early May. So I'll let Michael walk through how we've tallied it, what the information says, and be glad to have further discussion amongst you and anyone else in the room in terms of how you'd like to process this and any other feedback you want to provide us as we now hit the home stretch in providing you with the city administrator's recommended budget. I believe May 8th is when we will release that proposed budget and the transmittal letter and proposal that comes to you. So, Michael, take it away.
I do hope you all enjoyed your homework. So we asked you immediately after your last Budget and Finance Committee meeting to review the 93 program enhancement requests from virtually every department that totaled over $12 million in ask. Your packet, your detailed packet, includes 5 sheets. One is a summary of each of the individual top 15 rankings from each of you. We received 7 of 9 board members before we had to get everything summarized and sent out to you. Sheet 2 is a single count ranking exercise. So that simply says if you chose any particular item at all, regardless of how you ranked it, it's a tally to see how many times a particular item was chosen. Sheet 3 is the average ranking based solely upon your top 15 rankings. So if someone chose getting a new phone system as number 1, that would get a 1, and if somebody else chose it as number 12, it would get a 1 plus 12, and then you would divide that number based upon the total amounts of what that average is. Sheet 4 and 5 attempt to create a weighted ranking, which divides the numbers of count and where you have ranked it to come up with an average. So sheet 5, the math is as such. You take the average ranking from sheet 3. So 1 and 12 would be 6.5. Divided by the frequency on sheet 2. So it'd be 6.5 divided by 2, or 3.25. That would equal the weighted ranking that appears on sheet 4. Also on sheet 5, all requests are then ordered by sheet 2, and then sheet 4 to ensure that at least 3 votes were cast for each project making the top 15. This eliminates any outliers. So for example, on the screen, sheet 4, you can see that all 7 of you, your top weighted ranking and top individual count was to add 3 patrol officers. But if you go down to the 9th item, adding a SCBA manager in the fire department, that only has 2 votes, but the weighted ranking was significantly higher. So the way to solve for this is to once again do a division in math, and that's what you see on the screen in sheet 5. So 14 of the top 15 had at least 3 votes. This is, if you remember in January, I told you that accounting is science and budgeting is alchemy. This is not a magic way of doing things, but it is a method that tries to create a sense of fairness and averaging of where the priorities are and ensures that your voice is sort of, again, averaged. So the top 15 total $3,539,613 of added expenditure. That is everything above the red line. The top 14, which has at least 3 votes, is everything above the green line. There are only 6 items totaling $2.28 million that got 4 votes, 3 items only that it got at least 5 votes for $680,000, 2 for 6 of $459,000, and then again, only 1, adding 3 patrol officers in the police department, were on all of your lists. So I'm going to pause there. There's a final slide that we will get to after we hear your thoughts and discussion, and Eric will lead this regarding the schedule and timeline. But I'm happy to answer any questions on sort of the math behind the veil of this exercise, and then we're happy to answer any other questions regarding any of the program enhancements that you have reviewed over these last 3 months. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stuckey, you're next.
Yeah, let's just look at our the
Yep.
timeline to go forward. I'll hit that, and then we can circle back if you want to discuss anything in terms of the feedback. As we said today, we're reviewing what we've provided in terms of feedback. We'll huddle administratively with the goal of getting you on May 8th a recommended budget from me as city administrator. It is a team effort, but ultimately I'm putting my name on that as a recommendation to you. This committee will meet on the 14th of May, and then you'll review what's recommended to you. I'll present the budget to you more formally there, moving it on to the full board for the second final meeting in May 26th, that would be. And then the public hearing is at the first meeting in June, and third and final hearing or vote would be the second meeting in June. There is not nearly as much, I would say, in the way of policy work going on in this budget as there was a year ago. You were at the crossroads related to reappraisal and property tax rates and setting all that. But I would still say the same advice applies. The sooner we get feedback from you on how you may want to alter a budget or an approach, the better, so that we can modify it. It can be incorporated into the public hearing and those things. So that's why you're meeting in May, and that first discussion that we have both at work session and at the first reading on May 26th is very helpful to us to have that guidance from you. But ultimately, we know the board gets to decide, and we will work with you however that works. We're, like I said, we're heading in the home stretch of sort of the administrative process side, and then come May 8th and beyond, it becomes more of a public discussion with the board and gaining your final guidance and your action to get us set up for the start of fiscal '27. So glad to answer any questions or review any of the priorities we saw. I don't think any of this surprised us much from the feedback and discussion we'd had previously, but it is always helpful to bring it together and see it collectively and to get as much feedback as we can from the board.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, we got a couple minutes. Yeah, I'll give you my 2 cents as you're putting your thoughts together. I thought, coming out of last year and the increase that we took, this is always a hard exercise. You want to say yes to everything, if you had the money.
They're all worthy. Yeah, they
No
are. They
doubt,
really
no
are.
doubt. Everybody makes a really great plea. Even the outside agencies made some great pleas today. I kind of took the approach of, we made an increase last year, let's not just go out and spend it. More so, I really tried to look at things that I thought would inform how we might spend it. So I really did try to look at things like the sports economic study or the OpenGov performance measure, like things that I thought would either make us more efficient, even the time clock stuff, or would inform how we might spend money in the future or might bring more economic benefit to us later. And then the third criteria I used was just where there was, I thought, a pretty critical service gap or maybe a fall down. And so there's a couple little things in there that maybe, maybe not hit those 3 criteria, but I would say probably the majority of the things I hit were what would either inform our spend or be critical to service. And it just felt like a good year to do that, coming off of the increase we took last year. How might we take a breath and inform spend going forward, so.
And we did have a mindset, I think, as we approached this last year, that this was not just a 1 year, adjust the rate and do that. We had the same mindset we had that carried us with the same rate for 9 years, was let's look at what we can do and sustain and help meet needs both on the operating and in the opportunity to partner on significant capital investments. So we've tried to have that same mentality. You see in the budget, our team does a sort of a stress test and looks 5 years out too on the operating side to make sure we are doing things that we can continue to support and provide consistent service to the community. So appreciate that feedback, and that is definitely is a mentality we try to have.
So there's 7 counts in here, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that means somebody did not complete the exercise.
We did not receive 2 of the 9.
So you had 9.
Yeah, 9 counts.
Send out 9.
We include the mayor.
8 board members plus the mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Clyde. I went through a similar process that Matt described. I didn't articulate it nearly as well as he just did. But essentially, I looked at what the leaders of these departments came and asked for, where I felt like there was a gap between where we are, and also where there was a cliff, where if we didn't do something like a time clock, we were going to really have to figure something out. And that became a little bit easier. Once you got rid of that, then you're starting to choose where you think the appropriation of these funds would be most well-received by our community. And then I got to the end of 15, and I still had more that I wanted to use. And just sharing with this broader group, I reached out to Michael, and as the chief alchemist in our midst, I said, Michael, this doesn't make sense. We're looking at operating budget requests, but I'm having to use some of my voting tokens on budget negative elements, right? And I don't know about my colleagues here, but generally, if it's a budget negative initiative, we should probably take
More
that,
than
right?
likely, we're going to initiate.
That would be my thing, and I'm not a mathematician, but if I can get some points back without having to spend any, I think we should do that. Now, there is some elements that should be considered, and I'm sure, Michael, you and the team did, that if, for example, a utility plan review technician creates a negative $21,000 in year 1, but it creates a plus $40,000 in year 2, we should not be given the free token for that. That being said, there were 4 or 5 different items that were budget negative, and I only had 15 tokens to vote. So I asked Michael for permission if I could get those 5 back. And so I submitted a second recommendation with approval from Michael.
If it helps, I gave similar guidance
his
to
homework.
one of your colleagues too.
From
It's like, I'll probably take the negative, so you
Yeah, I would think that the negatives are kind of automatic. And so, and I noticed that none of the negatives showed up in sheet 5. And so either I was the only one who marked the negatives in the way that I did, or they didn't receive enough support that they made it into the sheet. Regardless, I hope all of the negatives, as long as there's not a hidden cost in year 2, I hope all of those become automatic.
Yep, yep, yep.
And thank you for giving me some additional grace, because I didn't want to sit there and decide if I wanted to save $21,000 or $13,000 of our taxpayers' money, rather than deciding to put a new roof on a building.
Right.
Any additional questions or comments?
So just to be clear, all the negatives will be automatically moved forward, or do you need more direction on the negatives?
I think we can figure those out. I don't know of any of those that are problematic. I think they all make sense. So I think you'll see those land in the budget, and that's a good way to use your tokens, as you said it.
So you got 5 additional.
I got 5 for each. You don't ask, you don't get if you don't ask, right?
If we're through with that, let's go to item 10 then, financial report for second quarter. Margaret, and you might as well cover the monthly reports also.
I will try to be short and sweet and to the point, because I know we are running close on time. Quarter two reports, just wanted to address two different things. In general fund, we do still show a deficit of $420,000. This is due to lower grant revenue this year. We also have lower interest revenue, but also as a reminder, we hold all of our investments to maturity. So it is just what we have recorded.
If I may also help Margaret, I could tag team this one. We also, there is timing on transfers, because of course, this is a point in time of December 31st. And when you look at our transfers out of the general fund at the same time the year before, that there are several $1 million difference between the fiscal year 25 and 26. And so, Margaret, I completely agree with what Margaret shared as her comments, but when you also look at the timing of those contributions to other funds, and I'll give the example of contributions to capital projects that we're funding with cash. We've talked about the timing of going into construction on capital projects. That is also a driver of where we are at as of 12/31 with that deficit of $420,000. So certainly we had, as Michael says, we have planned to spend monies out of the fund balance on capital projects, and we're spending a lot of money. We're spending money right now. So thank you, Margaret. I'm sorry to jump in there.
Not a problem. I do also want to just take note on state street aid, gas tax is comparable to last year, but this is also where we record the state sports wagering tax, and it is up by nearly 8% year over year. So good or bad, just wanted to point that out.
Did you increase, were you part of that 8%?
I'm afraid that that Titan Super Bowl bet did not come through.
And once
You
again,
had seen my bracket, Clyde, you would know.
well, we'll find out the March results here in third quarter. Monthly reports?
Monthly.
I'm just gonna address three things closely, or just real quickly. Road impact and parkland impact both have increases, and as Michael has dutifully told us, this is all due to timing of development, so just keep that in mind as we move forward. Hotel motel tax is year over increase is a little over 1%, and we brought up conference center earlier for, did not have this one written down, for February, our half proceeds was $51,000. This is lower than last year, of $167,000, but we do have revenue in February, and it sounds like we'll have a good return in March as well, but you will hear that next month.
So 51,745.
Yep. That's what we gained this year
That month.
for that month.
Any questions on anything Margaret's reported? Then let's go to item 12. City of Franklin indirect cost analysis methodology.
So this item is in your packets for your information only. We tried to figure out a way exactly how to make sure you got it, and it made sense to do it. We're not planning to review this with you, but the question had been asked, how do we do our indirect cost methodology, and what are the drivers behind it? Who gets assessed in terms of departments? So you have both a small set of 4 PowerPoint slides and 3 pages of detailed sort of spreadsheet that explain step by step. So that's available to you. Happy to answer any questions offline if you have them, but just wanted to make sure that we did that. There's a small amount of increase this year against the 4 funds. We do look at it every year. When you take a look at the aggregate total of those 4 operational funds, water, sewer, sanitation, and stormwater, the indirect charge charged against it is between 6 and 7% of their total operations. So if you think about the 10 departments or so that end up receiving this, by any accounting stretch of the imagination, that is a reasonable assessment of indirect costs. Usually, the rule of thumb is when it exceeds 20, you need to take a deep breath. So we try to be fair, we try to be equitable, but we also try to balance what the general fund is providing those operations overall. Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments on anything that Michael's covered, anything that the city administrator's covered? If not, made a commitment, we would be through by 15 till 5. And we're 10 minutes before that then. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Proper motion or a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. See you tomorrow night.
Same